Alright, we're going to talk about how to make a wooden train today. My thing is, I like it to look right, and so I think a train should be to scale. And if you ever look at a train, they're basically longer than they are tall and taller than they are wide. So you got to pick something to start with. So we're going to pick the wheels. So we're going to have the side of our train either look like this. I guess go this way. And so we're going to have our wheels to look more or less like this. Get them in a straight line here. There we go. And so this will be the front of our train, and this will be the back. We're going to, just out of convenience here, we're going to put in just a line that marks the bottom of the ground here for our scale. And like I say, we'll put these down here to it. And I don't want these wheels touching, but I do want them to be fairly close, I think. So we're going to scoot them on up like that. And for reference, the smaller wheels are 1 3/4, 1 3/4 inches, and these ones on this side are 3-inch wheels, the big wheels. So we need to drop in us a spot. We got to drill a hole and put a peg through this. So we're going to come down here below the edge of our hole, and we're going to put us a mark. I'd say, I don't know, maybe about like that. Put us a mark there. Then we're going to have at least a board that's this thick as to catch this hole here. So we're going to put a mark about there, something like that. And then we're going to have a round piece going this direction. And so we want that, I would say we want that to be somewhere in this range. Something like that. Which is probably about the same as one of these wheels. That would look good. That's going to be approximately 1 3/4 inches. And so then we want our cab of our train to be taller than all of these other things. So I'd say we want this train to be about that tall, maybe even taller. Let's see, about that tall. So we can go here, and this would be our, and I like my train to stick out past the back wheel here a little bit, the top of it at least, and then the back wall of it to be about here. Okay, and then we'd have the front with the cow catcher on it sticking out this direction, something like that. And of course we'd have some kind of a chimney here like that, and maybe even a little something here, something to go along like that. Okay, I think I like that scale. That fits our tires or our wheels pretty well. We might make it slightly longer, so I'm going to add to this a little bit just to give us a little extra here and get us a little closer to our cow catcher. That looks a little better. And I'm probably going to make this top stick out this way too a little bit, and maybe something like that. So something like this. So we're basically going to make a few pieces here. We're just going to draw them, and then we're going to measure them. I mean, that's the only way I know to make it look right is to draw it out, and then basically measure from that. Get it looking parallel here. And we're probably going to have us a little step on the back there. On this one, we're going to make it run a little longer. And we're going to make it come down and have us a peg on it so we can hook another train car to it. Something like that, and there'd be a peg here. And we would have a straight line here and more or less straight line there. We could make that fancy if we chose to, but I don't think we need to. And then this would just be, and we might put a bump out here on the front for like a light. That would be cool. Alright. And so let's do some measuring and see what we come up with. I'll get a ruler I can read. How about that? Alright, this bottom board is approximately 9 3/4. So this one, 9 3/4. This top board here is, say, 8 3/4 or 8 1/2, more or less, or a half rather. And then we've got a block here that's, I don't know, 2 1/2, 2 1/2 for this big block, this direction. And then we have, say, 4 1/4 for this direction. And then 2 inches, 2 inches this way, and then we'll say 3 inches this way, that direction. And we got, this is 1/4 by 3 1/2. And these probably, we'll say 1/4 down here too. Yeah. 1/4 by 9, 1/4. 1/4 by 8 1/2. Okay. So, and we can adjust these measurements a little bit, make it a little bit longer to start with, and always cut it down a little bit. We could add a little bit of detail back here. We could always make this curve in, makes it look a little more fancy, like it's actually moving. You can do all kind of different things with it. With our cylinder here being about 2 inches, we need to make these other pieces a little wider than that. And I'm going to say we're going to make it, say, 3 inches wide. So 3 inches wide for all the other parts. And this part here might be slightly skinnier than that. So say we'll do 2, and this is these base parts are 3 inches wide. The top up here will be 3 inches wide, but this block here will be, we'll say, 2 1/2 or 2 3/4 wide. So this particular block. So these two pieces will be slightly narrower than the bottom and the top up here. So that's where we're going to set this up and see what we get. And then we set our wheels back on this. Get this wheel back about like that. I think that will look about right. Put them up here. And we're we're hitting pretty much on that center line on that one. Now this one is not hitting right, so we may have to make this the full 3 inches so we can drill our hole in and hit something. Because if we don't, we're going to have a gap. We're going to have a gap there, so we got to get rid of this. This is going to be 3 inches as well. 3 inches. Okay, because this hole is going to hit this big block here if we set it where the bottom is straight, and that's what you got to do. We set the bottom down here straight. See, these ones are hitting dead on that center line, which will be fine. And then this one here is above it, so it's going to hit the cab of the train, which will be fine. What we could do is come here with another piece here, make a separate piece, and this piece be 3 inches wide, and then the cab on top of that. That might be a better solution. And then start our curve here, and this would be flat, or curve out. That might be a better solution. Because I like the cab to be sunk in a little bit. A little fatter than this, but a little skinnier than that. So let's go work us up a few pieces. Alright, I'll show you what I got. For this cab portion, I'm going to use these 2 blocks, and I'm just going to glue them together. And then we can cut out cabs out of this. And they will sit on the actual plan like that. We'll just cut off a chunk there, and they'll be stacked up. We'll have us another thin part for the top and a little bit fatter part to go underneath this right there. I haven't cut that one yet. And these will go right like this. Pretty much what we got to plan. And these are the same length, and I'm going to offset them by about 1 inch or so. And I'm going to glue these together as well, this direction. And if we do a measurement, just happen to work out that these are about 19 inches. And our longest piece here wants to be 9 3/4. So that's pretty darn close. And we might can offset this just a little bit because we need about 19 1/2. And so we may cheat that back just slightly. But I think that'll do good. We'll be able to cut this in half and have 2 bottoms then. So we'll be making multiples of this train. And if we did this, we could also have this be our second car as well, like a caboose or a coal car behind this. So this is the way you would make your cars, and they would match. The thickness would match, and the distance here if you keep them the same length and just offset them the same amount. So that's what we're planning for that. And so we're going to glue those 2 things together, and I've got to cut this out, and I've got to find something for this barrel shape here, either find it or make another one. I think I have some pieces like that somewhere. Alright, got our other pieces. This is just a round that I had turned earlier for something else, and I'm just going to use it for our train. It's not quite as big as we drew, but almost. And it's not perfectly round. It's got a few lumps and bumps in it. We're going to sand it up a little bit. And I cut it slightly longer because I'm going to flatten one side of it, and I'll use that side to lay down on my chop saw, and that will make my ends square. And I'm making 2 trains, so I got 2 pieces like that. And then these blocks here will go here and this way. That way they're the right dimension, and that will catch my big wheel. So I'll have a place to drill for that big wheel to go in. And alright, these 2 are the cabins of the trains. We just want to make sure that they're going to sit down flat on each other and not have a big seam. And we'll just glue the bottom one. again. All right. The next thing I'll do is I'll work on these a few minutes, and I will sand them up good, and then I'll trim off the ends to the exact length I want. And now that I have them, I've just sanded them on one side, just with the belt sander, just held it straight. And I did flip it end from end. That keeps your pressure even as I can get you to be. Everybody pushes harder one side or the other. So if you flip it around some, it keeps it more even. But that's made it so it will sit up on our block, and this is the block that goes behind it. Our pieces. I use one of these to measure my dowels or bolts or whatever I'm trying to make a hole for, and then I measure the drill bit. Because particularly wood, it'll shrink with moisture in that, and so you never, even though it may be like a 3/8 dowel or whatever, it may not be that every time you use it. And we want it to be snug, and then typically we're going to put another car on here like this, and so we want them to, that's why we rounded them so they'll spin. Y'all can see that enough so you can spin. And I generally like the dowel to stick up just slightly like it is here, and so that's what I'm going to do is mark these so I can cut them off. Alright, got our little dowels. I'm just going to put a little teeny bit of glue on it. Just a little teeny bit of glue. Like that much. I put some on and then I wiped it off, and I'm going to stick this in from the bottom up, and that way any glue is on the bottom and we can sand it off easy. If you do it the other way, then your glue is all up here, and that's really difficult to sand away. So I'm gauging with my finger or my thumb or whatever digit you want to use. I'm just gauging, so I'm keeping these two distances more or less the same, making the top of this kind of in the center. I think that's going to make it look the best. Right in the center. Set this down. Make sure we're more or less the right place. Squish the glue around a little bit. And clamp on here. The clamp trick works pretty good because it's hard to hold these things in the exact right place while you're nail gunning. So a little clamp trick works pretty good. So we got that. The glue will actually be what holds these blocks together. The nail guns are just our clamp, or the nails are just our clamp, basically. But there's our two trains. Like that. Nail gun in this one, we may just take this over to the drill press and drill us a couple of holes for a screw, and we'll screw this part on, mainly because I don't want to mess with the nail gun. We don't have but a small area to hit with this nail gun. Or we could just glue it. That would be another choice. Just stick it on here and glue it together, which may be all right too. Might just do that. Because the nail gun, you're taking a pretty good risk of shooting it out the side or shooting up into this. Sometimes it follows the wood. It doesn't want to shoot exactly straight. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But we might just set this up to put us a couple of clamps on this. Oh, we'll put some glue on it. Give her a shot. Again, not going crazy with the glue. Some people think you gotta have a million gallons of glue on something. You do not. If it's good glue, and we're using good glue. I'm just going to let that sit there just for a second or two and let that glue start to dry. Let me hold it just a second. Because I want it to be in the right place and be straight. And look straight. It doesn't have to be straight, it just has to look straight. Got a few rubber bands. Lost one somewhere along the way. But we let this sit here just a second and start gelling up. I'll have to go get another couple for the other one. We'll put these on here. And make sure we're looking straight, and you want to check to make sure your seam here is pretty tight. At this point it's not a whole lot we could do about it, but I checked that before we glued it, and we want to check to make sure we're on pretty straight down the row here. That looks pretty good. And we may put this one on with a clamp since I run out of rubber bands. The main thing is we don't want it to be moving as we're clamping it. And with the rubber bands it's a little easier to see that, but I think that will do us. And so we'll let that dry a few minutes. And to secure this permanently, we'll either drill a hole up through here, or once this is dried pretty good and we feel confident we can aim our nail gun, we'll turn it over and we'll shoot us a couple nails. And I generally shoot nails at angles, and in this situation they'd be back and front angles. If it's not such a skinny place, you can put them to the side one way or the other, but the angles actually help bite the nails into it, and so it won't come apart. The wood will actually break before it comes apart. But we'll let all that glue dry just a little bit, and once we get that done, we'll talk to you about what kind of options we have for smokestacks. There's one option, and you can turn it either way. I think it looks good either way. And here's another one. This is kind of a bought option. This is a smokestack for a train. I don't know that I like it as good as one that's not, everybody else don't have. And then if you have smaller trains, you could use like the top portion of this. It don't look bad on this one either. Or we can use the top portion of this, or some portion of this, as our extra piece that's behind the smokestack. And then this one is another thing we can cut in half. And I think we're going to cut this one in half and make this small part our light. If y'all can see all that. Make this small part our light that goes in the front. We'll turn it around like this. And we'll save this section back here to put back here as our second part of our train. I decided to use this for my smokestack, and what this is a candle holder. You make these, you just buy this little piece and you screw it down, and that holds your candle. But if you turn it upside down, I think it makes a pretty good smokestack. And all I have done is taken my same dowel that I had for the little peg in the back, right there. Get this out the way so we can see. Same dowel, and I put it in my hand drill, and I drilled a hole through this, and then I took this to my sander, and where the belt runs around my sander, it was about the right shape for this, so I held it up there, and it sanded in a kind of a concave, so this sits on here nicely. And now I'm just cutting me a dowel, and I'm going to glue the dowel into this part and then down into this, and it will look something like that. Something like that. And we can sand this off flat up here if we want to, or I might even just dome it up and leave it there. I think I kind of like it looking like that. So let's do that. Get a lot of glue, just smear it around a little bit. Probably can't see what I'm doing. Just like that. And then we're going to turn this. So we push this down. We'll go in there. And then if you look at it from this end, we want to make sure that that's turned so that it's fitting down on our barrel a little bit. And I think that's going to do fine. And just for giggles, we'll put a rubber band on top of this, just so it holds it. So there's one version. I'm liking that. Looks pretty good. Alright, I did go ahead and shoot these with a nail gun from the bottom. And the nails are about 1 3/4 inches long, not quite 2 inches, so they'll stick up. This is about 1 inch. So they're in here about 3/4, and I did angle them a little bit so that they would stay. That's just insurance. We did glue them and everything, but that's just the glue on that little surface. You know, somebody be up here prizing on this thing, it's liable to break loose. So we did put a couple nails in them. And then this one here, this is a store-bought item that you can buy for trains. I did shorten it a bit trying to get rid of that knot, but there's still a knot there, but it's smaller. It's a smaller knot. And then all I did is I went over my drill press with a Forstner bit, which is a flat bottom bit, and I drilled the appropriate size hole, which in this case was 3/4, and we're just going to glue that in there. Here's our little pieces. Like I say, we just cut off part of it and just sanded up the ends pretty good. Got a few little burn marks where the sander burned them a little bit. We'll touch that up with some hand sandpaper probably once we get them glued in there. I had a piece here, there we go. But you can always come back and touch them up. We get the bulk of it off with the power equipment. We come back with sandpaper. No biggie. The smaller they are, the harder they are to hold, though, for sure. But I think those will be fine for what our purposes are. And the reason I do this is because, number one, I have these little pieces. I'm not going to really do what they're supposed to be done with. They're little dowels that you like make little railings around different, I guess, doll houses or whatever. I bought it as a group, just in a big lot, and I'm not going to do anything with them. And I need little pieces to put on my train, so this is the way I come up with them. Didn't cost me anything. It's just a few minutes of time, and it works out pretty good. And you've got lots of variation. You can do all kinds of different combinations. All right. We're going to pick out the right drill bit for this, and then we're going to go over to our drill press. Got our two trains. Just drilled holes down here with a Forstner bit. Let me show you. But they drill a flat bottom hole with a point on it, which is what we really would like on something round. That point, we can put it in our drill press. I've got a jig set up so it's a fence on that drill press. I can move back and forth, and I can let this down, and it pokes a little hole, and I can see if that hole is on top of my cylinder or not. And I'm trying to get it right on top of the cylinder. I did okay with this. This one is off slightly off to that side. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's a toy. It's not a critical thing. This one actually looks the straightest, and I did it by hand. I drilled it actually by hand. But these looking nice. And at this stage, I don't have them glued in, so you can pop them in and out and trade them back and forth and see what you like. But I think I like these two the way they are. This one has a little more shape in it, and this has more straight sides, so I put that one there. It's the only reason. And now I've got the two pieces for the front here that I'm going to make lights with, and I'm just going to drill that by hand probably. Alright, I've just got my train set up here on top of some of these clamps, so it's holding it up. It's not flat on the bottom, you know, like this one. As you can tell, it would be tough to set that on something, so the clamps are just in here. They're holding on the back of this portion here. And this is our little teeny Forstner bit. I'm going to try to get these clamps. I don't want it to like go crazy tight or anything, because it's actually clamping on top of our little peg. But we're just going to put this here, and where is our light? Let's see how big it is. Alright, been a couple days since I got to video anything. But I have my parts of my train, some of them fixed out here. This is the engine, one of the engines we were working on. And we've got our holes drilled for our wheels. And the way I did that is I took this to the drill press, and I have basically a piece of plywood like this with a board on it attached to it, and I work hard on getting my drill press and my board to be 90 degrees to each other. That's the important thing. And you need to clamp this board to the backstop or to the table one, and then drill your holes so that it's not flopping around, moving around on you, because this will make or break your train. Because if your holes aren't lined up, your wheels won't touch. And there's ways to fix that. If your wheels don't touch, put all the wheels on it. As long as it's within a little bit of touching, you can lay it against your belt sander and let it run, and it'll spin and cut down some of the wheels. Now you got to be careful of that, that you don't cut them down so much they don't roll anymore, but you can do that. Or if you catch it ahead of time before you put them on there, you can put this in your drill and take it to the belt sander, pull the drill and spin it as it's spinning on the belt sander. You can adjust the wheels a little bit, but it depends on when you discover it's not going to roll. But if you line up your holes correctly and your wheels are the same size, which sometimes is an issue, they should roll. Should be no problem. And then this is going to be our back wheel. I did one earlier that had a spoked wheel on it, and this spoked wheel is ever so slightly bigger than that one. I don't know what that spoked wheel measurement is. These are supposed to be 2.5 inches, I think. What I bought. And these are 2.5 inches. And this spoked wheel is probably 2 3/4. 2.85, so a little more than 2 3/4. So I was hoping for ones about this size because I like that scale, but this is what I have, so that's what I'm going to use. I am going to probably trade these in. These are 2-inch wheels. I'm going to trade these in or sand them down. I hate to sand them down, but I've got some new ones ordered, but they're not here yet. But we've got the holes drilled, so it doesn't really matter what wheel we put on it, as long as it's not too small to make it roll. And that's why I haven't drilled the hole for this one, because if we switch this to a smaller wheel, this will have to adjust. Anyhow, that's where we're at on our train, and I have just cut a little piece of, this is white oak, no, red oak. This is red oak for our window, and then this is a piece of cherry for our little piece on the top, and this is poplar, and then all the rest of this is pine, including the wheels are pine. And we can paint these, or we can just, I like just using the woods color, and the woods color will pop more once we put our oil on there. We're gonna put a food safe finish on this. It's gonna be walnut oil and a little beeswax, and we'll just rub it all over it. We're not gonna I'm not gonna stain it or anything. I'm just gonna rub that on it, but it'll make the grain of our wood pop out much more. And we've been careful trying to keep our nail gun marks to a minimum, so when we nailed these together, these two pieces we nailed together, and then I nailed the top on, and then I just glued this over top of the nails. That's part of the reason we have this on here, just to cover up the nails. And this has all been glued and nailed, and down here at the bottom we can see the nail gun nails, where I did nail through the bottom here into this part, and then through the bottom here into this part. And but that's where we're at. And then we're going to make some cars with our train. So that's what we've been working on today. The first car we're going to make is our coal car. Our tender, they call it. And our tender is going to be made like this. In fact, actually it goes this way. We have to pay attention to which lip goes over which. On most of the cars it doesn't matter, but on this tender it does, because this is the front of it. It looks really weird if your tender is going that way. That would look really weird. So on the tender it does matter which direction this sets, but most of the other cars it does not. And so we want this to be like that, where this piece is over top of that one. And these have just been rough cut. I'll sand them and round them a little bit, not too much, but round it so it works good. And then we'll drill our holes for our pegs. But that's going to be our little tender car. It'll probably be something like that. And I like to make the cars not go as wide as the base of the train. It gives it another little something going on, and we might even shove this one forward a little bit so it's a little lip all the way around it. That gives it a little something, and we'll cut us out a piece of something here and stick on here like it's a sign or something. Tell you the name of the train usually, or the company. So that's one of our little cars we're working on today. And then this is our caboose, and our caboose needs to be as high or higher than the engine. The tender, it's okay for it to be lower. See, this tender will be right much lower than the engine. See, but the caboose should be as high or higher. And the reason is, your caboose, they would sit up here in this top section that's had windows all the way around, and they could see the whole train. That was why the people were in the caboose. They were protecting the train. That was their security. And so when we put our base on this, we'll be as high or higher, just about the same height. And my scale here is off a little bit probably. This should have been a little higher and this should have been a little lower, but it's the idea. It has a top part to the caboose, so I think it'll be alright. It's the material that I had on hand without gluing up a batch. That's the material we had. But I think that looks okay. It's the idea. And we'll put some windows on this because I did nail gun this side, but we'll cover these nails up with some windows, probably 3 windows on this, and maybe even some little windows up here at the top, like a little strip of glass. All right. The way I make my little axles, I want the ends to be round, or not flat really. And so I stick them in my drill, and this is a fancy belt sander, but any belt sander would work. And I just hold them on about a 45, and then around them, just in a second. Get them hot. Sometimes our little peg that we're using for our axle is a little bit too fat to go in the hole. So to reduce it, we just take a piece of sandpaper . Sand it a little bit. can actually get it to kind of feel its way into that hole once it starts. Alright, switch ends with it. Check this one. Yeah, it's still a little snug. And those feel, they feel a little snug in the hole even that I've got drilled. So we're gonna do some in the middle as well. So our fear here is to do too much. So I'm gonna leave this wheel on, and I've got the part that's going to hold the wheel in my jaws here, so it shouldn't do too much. I'll do this too much and get this goofed up. So I think that will probably do. We don't want too much sideways movement on our wheels, but a little bit, so it doesn't rub quite so much. And we want our little knobs here to be even, sticking out. And it doesn't have to stick out that much, that's just what we've got at this point. We're going to test fit all these and bring you back. Alright, we've got our train blocked up here so that the wheels are touching almost. See, this one pushes it, this one doesn't quite, so we're going to let it down just to one piece of paper. We just rounded up a piece of sandpaper. See, that one's, they're both pushing it now, so that's what we're wanting, both of those wheels to be engaged, basically. Then we're going to take our tire, our wheel, I'm going to set it up there. And this thing is a transfer punch. They come in a whole little box of them like this, and you don't need these really. You could do it other ways, but this is the easiest way, and I bought this from Harbor Freight. It's not expensive, maybe 20 bucks, something like that, less. And you don't need these all the time, but when you need them, they're really handy. And what it is basically a piece of metal with a point on the end of it, and the different sizes. You find the one that's the closest fit to your hole, which this one is, and then we're just going to set this tire up here where we want it to be, and we're going to push in on it and twist it a little bit, and then you can see there's a hole right there where we want to drill. There's another hole there where I started to use a different set of wheels on it, but the hole that's not been drilled is the one we want. But useful little tool, and nothing else will do that as good. So we're going to set up our drill press and drill these. And I've got my little, it's just a piece of plywood with a blocks nailed to it. And I've worked hard on getting this 90 degrees both directions by putting pieces of paper under this. And this is a little vise that I have. And it's like a machinist vise. It allows me to go backwards and forwards and left to right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this thing to where it's in line with my hole that I started over there. I just started me a little hole to get me a place to go to. The idea with this is we're going to drill straight down all the way through. We're going to have an axle on this wheel. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to drill as straight as I can. think I'm about to go through, I'm going to ease up so I don't bust it out. I just went through. Leave a whole lot of time or two here. Alright. And that's our hole. And since we've got little blocks, we can tell if we're pretty straight or not. See, it's right on the top of that line. This one is too, right on top of the line. So I think that's going to do us okay. And make it fit our holes. I'd rather start out with one just slightly bigger than I need. It's easier to just sand it down. Put our wheels on. And if you get a axle like this one that's almost too loose, that's an easy fix. Get you a little water. Where my water went? Here it is. Dip your finger in it and just rub it around right there. Just don't need a whole lot of moisture, but just a little moisture will swirl the grain up in that wood, and then it should make it a little bit more easy to fix. I gotta get a little bit more water. Alright, I got a little more water put on it. Yeah, that's helping. That's helping. And once you get the glue on it, of course, it's going to be a little bigger too. And get our knob sticking out evenly on both sides is what I'm working on. Trying to get that right. And we need to leave a little gap in here for the wheels to move back and forth, but not too much. And then we got to pick out our other wheels. Get our knobs to look even. Okay, so there's our train. We haven't adjusted these wheels yet, but we can do that at any point. And I may wait to see what we got at the end as far as our car that attaches. See what that's going to look like. But we're gonna adjust these. We might even just try to change them. Sometimes they're a little different, one set of wheels to the next. Sometimes not, but sometimes it is. It doesn't have to be off much to get that where it's not rolling. Alright, see, they're still not rolling. It's got a little back and forth, but not really much. So if we adjust those, we've got to be careful with that. So there's basically our engine. So now we're going to work on our caboose and our tender, the car that carries the coal or the wood that fired the engine. And we could always measure this, but just eyeballing it, it's a toy. It's not got to be but so perfect. Slide it just a slight more. I don't want it to touch. I want it to be close but not touching. Alright, we're going to call that close enough. And we're going to put us a little mark on this. See if we got something. That's probably as little mark as I got. I don't know what happened to my pencil. I don't know what happened to my pencil. We're just going to put us a little dot on that. And we're going to do that on each one of these. Because we want them to be identical. And we're going to glue them together and put a nail in them. Got our two sides here. That will work. And we're going to set up a couple of clamps. And basically I use the clamps to make certain that my edges are parallel before I nail it. That seems to help me anyway. Alright, we are going to use a little glue. Because we don't want this squirting out the sides. And so we look for our little mark. We put this together. And we can smear it around a little bit. Make sure it's down. And it's on our little mark. Check our mark. And like I said, basically what we're doing with the clamps are we're forcing those edges to be parallel as best I can. And now we have a little bit longer nail than we need, so we're going to put it at an angle a little bit. And that should shorten it so that it doesn't go all the way through like it just did. We shortened it some, but we didn't shorten it all the way. But that's no issue. We'll just knock it off with the sander. The main thing is that it's tight together and that it is parallel on the sides is what we're after. I've just ganged all my train platforms together and made sure that they were perfectly level. And then we're going to drill 4 of the 6 holes right here. Then we'll have to change. Adjusting my clamp where these are all flat against the bottom. We've got our holes marked, and the reason I clamp 3 or 4 of these together, whatever I feel I can do, is that it's more stable. It keeps it from rocking back and forth. So we'll line this up, and we could set up a stop block for this, but we've only got a couple of these to do, so I figure I can do it the old school way. Alright, as you can see on this side, we've got them pretty much center on our board. And the same on this side, pretty much center on our board. So we'll go clean these up a little bit, do the next part. Wheels here, but they got a little teeny hole, and I want them to fit an axle that I already have. So I'm going to make this hole bigger in the center the best I can, and I'm going to start out by using a countersink, and we're just going to make this hole a little bigger. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that over to the drill press and use that to center my drill bit in my drill press and drill those down. So I'm just going to do that on all of these. Got my countersink in the center here, so that gives me a little bit more to find with my drill bit. So I just stick that in the, if I do it today, no, stick that in my countersink, and then I'll pull the drill press down, and then I run the wheel up and down, let it spin a couple times to get it best I can in the center. But that's pretty good. Our train looking pretty good. What we're going to do next is we're going to put some food safe finish on it. We had a little walnut oil that you buy at the grocery store, and a little beeswax, and we're going to get us a clean paper towel. Get that out of the way. A clean paper towel, and we're going to mix it around a little bit. Get it all over our paper towel. I'm going to get this out the way. And we're going to put this on our project here, and it should bring out any of the grain that we have here. And this can be eaten, of course. Beeswax doesn't hurt you, and this walnut oil people put on their salad. Different people do. So as you can see, it really makes the grain pop on our train. And we could take the wheels off and all that. I don't have them glued on just yet to get every little nook and cranny, but we'll do what we can here. And the beauty of a wooden train is as it gets played with, it picks up patina, it gets dented in little dark spots and everything where the children play with it. And that's part of the beauty of a wooden train with there it is. There's the first car. Make sure y'all can see that. Alright, after we got her wiped on, we went back through and wiped it off a little bit. We can adjust our wheel here a little bit. It needs to go down. Maybe I can adjust it. I can adjust it. This is what the this is what it looks like after you've put the finish on. Give it 5 minutes or so, and then you would wipe the finish off, and that's what it looks like. And it really pops the grain out. It darkens up some of the wood. like the nice walnut, it really brings the grain out in that, and then the darkens up the wheels, makes them really pop. You can go back through, like on the end grain, it's going to soak up more and go away quicker on the end grain pieces, so you can go back through, put you a little bit more on those if need be. So a little bit on that one. Need a little more. But there you go. And then you want to wipe off any excess, just to make sure it's soaked in, not laying on top of it. But we've got 4 nice cars with this train. And so here's our little coal car, or some people call them a tender. I think that's the official name, is a tender. It tends the engine. But I think those look turning really nice. There it is. And then I made just a flatbed, and I put posts in him, and I cut sticks. These are just sticks out of the yard to make them logs, and cut different thickness ones just like real logs would be. And you know, if I was a little kid, I'd love playing with a little train with some sticks and pretending I was the engineer, or maybe even the fellow that cut the logs down. So there you go. Here's our train done and all hooked together. It's a very interesting project. Used lots of different wood species on this. It has poplar, pine, oak, walnut, and cherry. I think that's really using the wood grain and the color of the woods as a part of the design. Hope you've liked this. Hit that like and subscribe. See you on the next one.